The 70s gave birth to many things that changed the world: the floppy disk, mobile phone, and Rubik's Cube, just to name a few. In 1975, legendary television guru Merv Griffin would have a brilliant idea for a new game show. You take elements of the word game Hangman, and you combine them with a giant spinning wheel. When each of the 3 contestants takes a spin, the wheel lands on either a dollar amount or the dreaded bankrupt space, which wipes out their total earnings. With each spin, contestants get a chance to guess consonants from a puzzling mystery phrase featured on a giant display behind the wheel. Contestants also have the option of buying a vowel with a portion of the money they've accumulated so far. 3 rounds are played where the contestant who solves each puzzle keeps their monetary earnings. The top winner after the 3rd round goes on to a bonus round where they have the chance of winning a prize package, normally consisting of vacations, cars, and appliances, or a sizable cash prize. Wheel of Fortune has been a momentous success for 45 years. As of 2019, over 7,000 episodes of the iconic game show have been shown. Notably, it's also one of the highest-rated shows in syndication to ever be broadcast. In honor of the show's rich and illustrious history, let's take a look at some little-known facts that, unless you're a die-hard fan of the wheel-spinning game show, you're unlikely to be familiar with. Stick around for the whole video to see who comes up with the puzzles that get used for the show. You'll be shocked to learn which crew member comes up with most of the trickiest puzzles. Facts First presents 12 Untold Secrets Behind Wheel of Fortune. But before we start spinning wheels with fascinating reveals, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel. You can turn on notifications by tapping the bell icon so you can continue to enjoy our fresh new content and videos. Wheel of Fortune really was inspired by Hangman. Who hasn't had a long road trip with their siblings when you were a kid and had to come up with creative ways to keep each other entertained so your parents wouldn't act on their threat to turn this car around? There's only so many times you can ask Dad, "Are we there yet?" before he loses it. Merv Griffin had a similar experience when he was a kid, and he and his sister would always play Hangman to keep themselves busy. Those games might not have seemed significant to a young childhood Merv, but years later he would take the same concept and adapt it into a high-stakes game show. It was in conversations with his staff that they decided to throw in a twist to the whole deal with an addition of a giant roulette-style wheel. Merv had a strong affinity for wheels like that when he was a child, seeing them at casinos and carnivals and such. He knew he needed one in his new game show. By the way, did you ever get around to hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel? It only takes a second, and it's the best way for you to show us some support. Anyways, the host and hostess have remained the same since 1981. And thank goodness for that. Can you imagine Wheel of Fortune without Pat Sajak and Vanna White? That's like trying to picture Jeopardy without Alex Trebek. The same argument could probably be made about The Price is Right, but we're guessing that everyone feels similar to how we do when we say we miss Bob Barker. No offense, Drew Carey, but it's just not the same. Before it was Pat and Vanna, however, Chuck Woolery and Susan Stafford were the respective host and hostess of Wheel of Fortune from 1975 to 1981, when they parted ways with the show following salary disputes with the network and Merv Griffin. Sajak used to be a weatherman. Yep, he definitely upgraded his career. Not that being a local television weatherman is a bad gig or anything, but making the jump into national syndication and becoming the host of one of the most popular TV shows of all time is a big leap from telling Los Angeles residents whether it might rain. NBC wasn't keen on the idea of Sajak being the new host at first. They just weren't sold on the idea, but Griffin sure was. So much so, he refused to film any more episodes of the show until they caved in and gave him the job. Vanna White had competition. She was actually one of 3 lovely ladies in consideration for the hostess role on the show. Summer Bartholomew, former Miss USA and Miss California USA crown holder, was also really trying to get the job. She briefly would get a chance to fill in for the hostess role too in 1982. Bartholomew would go on to be the hostess in the game show's Sale of the Century. Vanna White's other main competitor was Vicky McCarthy, who was the Playmate of the Month in the September 1979 issue of Playboy. She went on to find some minor success on Bravo with the show Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, in addition to authoring a series of guides and self-help books that drew on her knowledge from being a lawyer. Merv decided Vanna White was destined to be the show's hostess, as he was particularly impressed by the way she turned over the letters on the puzzle board. We're not gonna lie, we like how she turns those letters too. She makes it look good. The Pat Sajak Show. We all have dreams. In 1989, Pat's dream was to become a late-night talk show host. Unfortunately, this dream didn't quite pan out the way he had hoped. The Pat Sajak Show lasted only 1 season and was canceled in 1990 following pretty dismal low ratings. So it was back to Wheel of Fortune for Mr. Sajak, exactly where audiences wanted to see him. The show used to take an hour to film. Producer Harry Friedman, who got on board with the show in '95, was pretty peeved about it too. After all, the show only airs for 30 minutes. Why should it take double that to film? The reason why Wheel of Fortune took so long to film was that after each round, the puzzle board had to be manually reset for each new puzzle. This process took roughly 10 minutes for each reset, of which there are 3 required each episode. In 1997, the production team solved the problem. They designed an entirely new puzzle board with touch-sensitive screens that displayed the letters electronically. From that point onward, each episode only took a half hour to film, and most importantly, Harry Friedman had been appeased. Jim Thornton is the current announcer. He's been the announcer of the Wheel of Fortune since 2011, when he swapped out for Charlie O'Donnell, who had passed away the year prior. O'Donnell had been with the show since 1975. The Broadcast Pioneers of Philadelphia inducted O'Donnell into its Hall of Fame in 2011 to pay him honor for his decades of solid announcing work on television. After his death, it took several months for Wheel of Fortune to find the right announcer. They even had Jeopardy's announcer, Johnny Gilbert, do a few episodes before they settled on Jim Thornton, who was a longtime veteran of LA radio. Vanna White is a fashion icon. Young women especially have been fascinated with Vanna's wardrobe for years. She's constantly shaking things up with a different look nearly every episode. Because of her fashion sensibilities, she's amassed quite a following of women who are especially interested in what she's wearing. This fandom following has been deemed Vanna-mania. The Wheel of Fortune has a giant yellow RV, and they take that recreational vehicle all across the country in search of new contestants that would be a good match for the show. They've embarked on well over 275 search quests and have traveled more than 300,000 miles in search of new faces. Fans lucky enough to come across this RV get a chance to have an up-close and personal experience of what it's like to be one of the lucky few that get to be on the show. Over the years, over 1 million people have applied for the chance to be on the show. Wheel has jumped networks and studios. Initially, the show was taped at NBC Studios in Burbank, California, but in 1989, they went over to CBS, where the show was filmed at CBS Television City Studios in Los Angeles. But in 1995, the rights to the show got sold once again back to NBC. Since then, they've been taping episodes of the iconic game show at Sony Picture Studios in Culver City. The studio set changed a bunch over the years. Originally, the set consisted of a yellow, red, and blue color scheme for its backdrop. But when they made the move from NBC to CBS in '89, gold and spikes were added to the background decor, and an additional score screen was added to the setup. A few years later, in 1997, the color scheme and decor were dropped and replaced with a special theme that would change every week. In 1998, all this theming and special decorations were replaced with a video wall to make it easier. April Fool's Day. In 1997, something truly spectacular happened on April Fool's Day. Alex Trebek from Jeopardy stepped in to be Wheel of Fortune's host for the day. Guess who the contestants were? None other than Pat Sajak and Vanna White, who competed for various charities. The hostess for that episode was Leslie Brown, who just so happens to be Pat Sajak's wife. Extra fact: ever wonder how they come up with all the puzzles? Well, the entire crew contributes to the fun, but one person in particular is especially good at coming up with the real stumpers. Vanna White has been an avid fan of crossword puzzles for years, so it's no surprise she would be great at coming up with some of Wheel of Fortune's most brain-twisting puzzles. According to Sajak, White's puzzles get used on a regular basis. Well, here we are again at the end of another great video. It's crazy to think that Wheel of Fortune has been on TV for so many decades. It's even crazier how Vanna White looks so amazing after all these years. Vanna White's fiancé died in a plane crash. Vanna told People magazine that the second she heard about her husband-to-be's death, she immediately fell to her knees. It was one of the most devastating moments of her life. White's world got turned upside down on May 17, 1986. But before fate dealt her such a difficult hand, the South Carolina native's life had finally started to look like it was coming together. After spending years waiting tables while struggling to find meaningful work as an aspiring actress, all the while dealing with her mother's cancer diagnosis and subsequent death, she finally started to land some higher-profile roles. She had a couple of significant breaks in the early 80s when she landed roles in 1980's Gypsy Angel and 1981's Graduation Day. In 1982, she rose above 200 other applicants and landed her iconic position as letter turner on Wheel of Fortune, taking over the honor after former hostess Susan Stafford's departure. Before she found out she got the job, the network had narrowed down their choices to just 2 women. The other applicant, hoping to get that life-changing call, Vicky McCarty-Iovine, happened to be one of White's good friends, and even though she missed out on the career opportunity, she wound up becoming a successful writer. Vanna wanted the job more than anything else. According to that same People interview, White recalls her knees were shaking and her mouth was quivering while she waited to hear back from the producers. She couldn't even talk. Waiting on the call felt like an eternity. White got the good news the day before Thanksgiving, and she touts it as one of the happiest days of her life. She was sitting in her apartment at the time. When she picked up the receiver and heard she'd been selected, she screamed out loud. Her life path had just taken a momentous turn. It was the big break she'd been spending years anticipating. White and Wheel host Pat Sajak immediately hit it off. The show's creator, Merv Griffin, described their relationship as being built on strong brotherly and sisterly chemistry. And the viewing audience immediately took a liking to their on-screen interplay. The stars were beginning to align, and soon Wheel of Fortune would become an incredible game show success story. By 1986, Wheel was bringing in a hefty $100 million a year in advertising revenue and had amassed an audience of over 30 million viewers. To put that into perspective, that was nearly twice the viewers of the second highest rated syndicated TV show, MASH. Things were looking up for Vanna, and her personal life was also full of magic. She and longtime boyfriend Josh Gibson had gotten engaged and were planning out a life with each other. Gibson was a man of many talents. Not only had he starred in soap operas like One Life to Live and The Young and the Restless, but he was also a talented carpenter, helicopter pilot, exotic dancer, and sculptor. Vanna's hopes and future plans came crashing down when Gibson's French-manufactured single-engine Trinidad TB-20 crashed during its final approach at California's busy Van Nuys Airport. He was killed on impact and burned beyond recognition. You won't find it in the dictionary, but the word Vanna Mania was coined to describe White's unfathomable popularity during the 80s. White was gracing the covers of numerous magazines. She had her own fragrance and even had her own fashion line that she marketed on the Home Shopping Network. She was on top of the world when she received the heart-wrenching news about Gibson. Vanna Mania was in full swing when that tragedy struck, turning White's life and emotions upside down. It was a devastating blow, and White wouldn't have been able to deal with the resulting heartache if she hadn't had a strong support system to catch her as she fell. Keep watching to find out how Wheel of Fortune fans made Vanna White's grief a little less horrible. And if you're enjoying this video, be sure to click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with all our videos. Wheel fans made Vanna feel supported. Dealing with personal tragedy juxtaposed with experiencing tremendous professional success was a bitter reality that Vanna found especially difficult to face. There's something about being a celebrity that can be quite alienating and lonely at times, especially when someone is going through intense heartbreak. Fortunately, there proved to be one group of people who stepped up to the plate to lend White a helping hand when she needed it most: Wheel of Fortune fans. White heard from so many people who reached out to her to share their own uniquely painful experiences of losing a loved one in an unexpected accident. Knowing that there were people out there who knew what she was going through helped her tremendously. She no longer felt like she was alone. There was a sizable community of empathetic souls fighting alongside her. Not long after Gibson's death, tragedy struck once again. Even though the news of her fiancé's passing was a cruel and devastating blow, White eventually managed to start picking up the pieces and put her life back together. She wouldn't have been able to make it through that dark chapter of her story if it weren't for her supportive base of loyal fans. In 1990, White was ready to give love another try, and got married to restaurateur and director George Santo Pietro. Shortly after tying the knot, the couple decided they were ready to start a family. White announced her pregnancy in 1992. She announced the good news in true Wheel of Fortune style with a puzzle that spelled out the phrase, "Vanna's pregnant." The public was just as thrilled as she was. White had always dreamed about having a baby, so when that dream became a reality, she could hardly contain herself. Once again, things were starting to come together for White. Unfortunately, that happiness would prove to be short-lived as well. A week after making her on-screen announcement, she suffered a miscarriage. It was an agonizing loss, especially since she had just gone out of her way to tell the world about the pregnancy on live TV. Once again, White leaned upon her fans and support system to get through this painful period. She did her best to stay strong and hold on. White also attributes some of her strength navigating these turbulent times to her personal relationship with God. She's been a Christian her whole life, and even though she doesn't like to come across as preachy, she found comfort in the hope she had in her faith. Prayer got her through the darkest moments. There was some good news after dealing with these two calamities. White went on to get pregnant again and had 2 children. Her son Nicholas was born in 1994, and her daughter Giovanna was born in 1997. Her kids have been another crucial piece of her support system. Nico and Gigi, as she lovingly calls them, attend quite a few tapings of Wheel of Fortune. In fact, Gigi has appeared as a guest with her mom more times than anyone else on the show. Vanna's Wheel of Fortune family has never left her side, and never will. Despite all the curveballs and unexpected twists and turns her life has thrown her, White has been able to power through the hard times and achieve milestones that few have been able to reach. She got her very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2006, and on May 10, 2019, she filmed her 7,000th episode of Wheel of Fortune. In 2013, Guinness World Records awarded her with a certificate recognizing a rather unorthodox accomplishment. White had appeared in all but 10 of Wheel's 5,754 episodes. Seeing as she claps an average of 606 claps per show, her career clapping total equaled out to nearly 3.5 million claps throughout the show's 30 seasons. That made her the world's most frequent clapper. White has stood tall and strong even through the most crippling of circumstances. She's been a beacon of hope to her legion of adoring fans who have stood by her side through thick and thin. Hopefully, Vanna doesn't have to deal with any more unexpected tragedies. She's gone through enough in her life and deserves a break. We're also looking forward to seeing her on Wheel of Fortune for quite some time. The show wouldn't be the same without her and Pat Sajak. Mythological hero Achilles. Our first fail happens when a contestant is closing in on the clue, mythological hero Achilles. At first, it seems like he has it all under control. There are a lot of letters already on the board. And to be honest, it seems like there's pretty much no way to get it wrong. This is especially true when the contestant guesses all the letters correctly. Clearly, he knows the answer. Now it's just a matter of saying it out loud. That, of course, is when it all goes wrong. Clearly, this contestant is familiar with the ancient mythological hero Achilles, but he's probably never said it out loud. At least, that's what we're hoping is going on here. Unfortunately, when it comes time to say the answer, he mispronounces Achilles so badly that Pat Sajak and the producers of the show can't award him the win. It's a Wheel of Fortune fail of mythological proportions. Clam what? Okay, we'll be the first to admit we also fell for this popular viral Wheel of Fortune fail, assuming it was real. But according to Snopes.com, it's actually just a clever edit. So while technically it's a made-up fail, it's still something that took the internet by storm, so we're keeping it in here. In the fake clip, a contestant is looking at an almost solved puzzle, with the first word being clam and the second word ending in iggers. It just needs a first letter filled in. Clearly the answer was clam diggers. But some cheeky person on the internet thought it would be funny to take a clip from a different part of that same show where a contestant asked for the letter N. Obviously, we won't get close to saying what it would make the puzzle say, but you can probably figure it out. The humor of the clip is in Pat Sajak's reaction, which the editor grabbed from another moment in the show. Clearly in that clip, Pat is kind of shaking his head in disbelief. And of course, it would be utterly unbelievable, not to mention incredibly offensive, if this really happened. But fortunately, it did not. Exclusive nightclub. In this Wheel of Fortune fail, it truly looks like everything is going right for the contestant. The board is nearly full and she spins and lands on $10,000. She guesses the letter G, which is on the board. The answer, exclusive nightclub, is now only missing the X and V from exclusive. After another spin, the contestant guesses another letter, a K. Unfortunately, there's no K in exclusive, though we can't blame her too much since X and K often make the same sound. If only she had just chosen to solve and said the clue out loud, then no one would ever known she didn't know how to spell exclusive. Magic wand. This is a particularly cringeworthy Wheel of Fortune fail because it's such a common and easy phrase. It's also doubly sad because it happens in the bonus round at the end of the show. The contestant's initial letters, plus the RSTLNE that the show automatically gives him, end up populating most of the letters of the clue. He knows the first word is magic, but then can't figure out the second word. He starts going through all the variations he can think of, like magic band, magic hand, and more. He finally does get it, but it's just after time has expired, meaning he doesn't win the prize. Before we share more Wheel of Fortune fails with you, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Declaring victory. This is one of the stranger Wheel of Fortune fails out there. In this case, the contestant literally guesses correctly but isn't given credit for it. The reason? He adds an extra word. Instead of saying the phrase declaring victory, he says, "I'm declaring victory." It seems clear he's attempting to be a little cheeky with his answer, but he's too clever for his own good. After his answer is rejected, another contestant says the correct phrase, this time without the word I'm, and gets the win. Pat Sajak has to regretfully tell the contestant that since he added the word I'm, that's why the producers decided not to grant him the win. Corner Curio Cabinet. This is another case of a contestant clearly knowing the answer but failing to say it out loud correctly. While the board shows everything but the B in cabinet, this contestant feels confident enough to solve the puzzle. But as he says the phrase, instead of saying corner curio cabinet, he says something that sounds a lot more like corno curo cabinet. The audience's gasps and sighs tell you everything you need to know. This is clearly not close enough for the show to award him the win. The next contestant is easily able to solve, especially having heard the last word cabinet said correctly by the first contestant. Pat Sajak tries to comfort the bummed-out contestant and even promises they'll take another look during the commercial break to make sure they weren't being unfair. But as far as we know, this one ended up an unfortunate Wheel of Fortune fail. A group of what? Some Wheel of Fortune fails are sad, some are frustrating, and some are just hilarious. This one falls into the latter category. This contestant takes a stab at a clue with several letters missing, and frankly, he almost nails it. He gets the first 3 words right, a group of, but that's where things take a hilarious turn. Instead of guessing the correct answer, a group of well-wishers, he guesses a group of pill-pushers. This, of course, gets a big laugh from both Pat Sajak and the studio audience. It's funny not only because that's not exactly the type of family-oriented answer that Wheel of Fortune usually has, but also because of how opposite to the real answer it was. Pat is even moved to mockingly shout, "This is Wheel of Fortune, Joe," though we suppose if they are pushing healthy supplements, maybe they are well-wishers too. The Painted Desert. This Wheel of Fortune fail is a group effort. One contestant first guesses the letter P correctly, leaving only 2 letters in painted. But she guesses wrong, assuming it was the pointed desert. She gets another try and goes for the printed desert, which is also incorrect. It then goes to the next contestant, who apparently had spaced out while the first contestant was guessing, because instead of trying something new, he goes right back to her first guess, the pointed desert. Pat says it's wrong and he has more time to guess again, but the contestant gets confused and asks to solve the puzzle. Pat is confused but says he should absolutely solve it. So the contestant tries again with the pointed desert, a phrase we've now heard 3 times. And as Pat points out, it's still wrong, no matter how many times they say it. Finally, the third contestant takes a turn and nails the right answer. Passing the bacon. This is another lighthearted moment, especially for host Pat Sajak. After most of the letters are revealed for the clue passing the baton, a contestant guesses passing the bacon. That, of course, is an incorrect guess, and none of the other contestants get it right. But Pat starts chuckling and points out that passing the bacon is a much more fun clue than passing the baton. He gets laughs from the audience and decides to double down, asking why they don't make bacon batons. Indeed, Pat, indeed. Regis Philbin and Kelly Ripa. Sometimes people's names are what takes down contestants, and this one is a great example. In this case, the clue was clearly Regis Philbin and Kelly Ripa. And we assume most people are familiar with these 2 incredibly famous hosts and TV personalities, but apparently not these 3 contestants. All 3 take turns trying to say their names correctly, failing over and over. The first tries for Regis Phil Byrne and is told he's wrong. The second pronounces it Kelly Ripa. The third tries to solve it and says Regis Phil Men. Then it's back around to the first contestant again. He thinks he's got it solved, but pronounces it Kelly Ripa. Wrong again. Finally, it swings back to the second contestant, who finally gets it right. Clearly, these 3 are not daytime TV watchers. Pat Sajak's retirement. For the past few years, retirement has been on Pat Sajak's mind. Partly because he's getting up there in years, the host is currently 76, and partly because it's something he's constantly been asked about recently. And up until now, he's been vague with his answers, saying only he wouldn't be hosting the show forever, and that at some point he'd call it a day. Like in 2021, when in an interview alongside Vanna White, he mused that they definitely wouldn't be there 10 years later in 2031. Vanna White agreed with that sentiment. So at the very least, fans all over knew this was coming at some point. In an announcement on his Twitter, Sajak wrote, quote, "Well, the time has come. I've decided that our 41st season, which begins in September, will be my last." The tweet added, quote, "It's been a wonderful ride, and I'll have more to say in the coming months. Many thanks to you all. If nothing else, it'll keep the clickbait sites busy." Naturally, social media has been buzzing about the news, with fans chiming in to share their appreciation for Sajak and what he's meant to the landscape of the game show in America, as well as his role in shaping popular culture over the years. And at the same time, there are many questions as to what the future holds for Wheel of Fortune. Suzanne Prett, the VP of game shows for Sony, confirmed that after Pat leaves, he'll continue on as a consultant for the show for 3 years. But obviously that will be a role behind the scenes, so they'll need to find a replacement for him as host beginning after next season. Pat's career. Pat was born October 26, 1946 in Chicago. His early life saw him develop an interest in broadcasting from a young age. While attending Columbia College, Chicago, he worked at a local radio station and gained valuable experience in the field. His passion for broadcasting led him to enlist in the U.S. Army, where he served as a disc jockey for the Armed Forces Radio in Vietnam. After his military service, Sajak's career in broadcasting began to take shape. He worked as a radio DJ and weatherman in Nashville, Tennessee, before his big break came in 1981 when he was selected to replace Chuck Woolery as the host of Wheel of Fortune. Sajak's charismatic personality, quick wit, and ability to connect with contestants and viewers endeared him to audiences, and he's remained the host of the show ever since. Sajak has become an integral part of the show's success. His friendly and engaging demeanor, along with his skill in keeping the game flowing smoothly, have contributed to its enduring popularity. His tenure has earned him numerous awards and accolades, including several Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Game Show Host. He's also made guest appearances on various TV shows and has served as a fill-in host for other game shows. He also hosted his own short-lived talk show, The Pat Sajak Show, which aired in the late 80s. Will Vanna take over? There has been some speculation that Vanna White might take the reins as host. After all, she knows the game about as well as anyone, having worked as Pat's co-host for 40 years as well. But at the same time, at 66 years old, she's potentially nearing retirement age as well. So it seems unlikely that the network would want to start a new era of hosting with someone who might be looking to leave pretty soon. Plus, she and Pat Sajak are so intertwined in the minds of the American public, it might be hard for some people to make the adjustment of only seeing Vanna. And yet, that was the case recently when Vanna hosted the show for a brief stint. Pat had to undergo surgery in 2019 and was unable to host during his recovery. So Vanna took over as host while he recuperated, and she did an excellent job. Her charm and appeal are legendary, so it was no surprise that she was a capable host. So it remains to be seen whether she'll be strongly considered for the gig. She began her time on Wheel in 1982. As legend has it, it all started with the taping of an episode of a show called Dance Fever. Vanna appeared as a dancer on the show, which was produced by Merv Griffin, the same man who produced Wheel of Fortune. During production, the two were randomly introduced. Merv was so impressed by Vanna's charisma and her look, he called her not long afterwards and asked her if she wanted to audition for the role of co-host on Wheel of Fortune. Vanna jumped at the opportunity. The news came on Thanksgiving Day, and Vanna was given the job by the end of the year. And although Vanna is certainly the most iconic letter-turner to ever grace the show, she wasn't the first. Susan Stafford fulfilled the role before Vanna was given her co-hosting job in 1982. Reportedly, Susan despised the position, feeling it was below her. Vanna, on the other hand, was incredibly grateful to take her place. Pat's daughter, Maggie Sajak. There has been a lot of speculation in recent years that Maggie Sajak, Pat's daughter, might be in line to take over hosting duties for Wheel of Fortune. After seeing a clip of Pat and Maggie bantering during a Wheel of Fortune trivia segment, viewers began to suspect that 28-year-old Maggie may very well be next in line. Maggie Marie Sajak has spent the majority of her adult life performing as a country music singer. Her musical style has been compared to artists like Jewel and Michelle Branch, although you can distinctly hear influences from country stars like Carrie Underwood and Sheryl Crow. She was born in 1995 and grew up in Severna Park, Maryland. At age 12, she picked up the guitar and started taking lessons. She released her first single, First Kiss, in 2011. The next year, the music video for it, which was directed by the award-winning director Trey Fanjoy, was featured on an episode of Wheel of Fortune to mark Maggie's 17th birthday. Maggie went on to record several other singles, one of which was featured in the season finale of the series Sweet Home Alabama. In 2013, while in her freshman year at Princeton, Maggie did a fashion shoot for Teen Vogue. Flash forward to January 2020, she first appeared on Wheel of Fortune, filling in for Vanna White as a letter turner for a week while White was hosting in place of Pat, who was recovering from that surgery. Then in 2021, Maggie officially joined the Wheel of Fortune team as a social media correspondent. Will Maggie take over as host? Fans of the game show have focused on Pat's recent remarks about Maggie's hosting skills. In a clip from the Holiday Trivia with Pat and Vanna special, which aired in December 2022, Maggie took over as host while quizzing Pat and Vanna with some festive holiday-related questions. After putting their knowledge to the test with prompts about Santa Claus's various nicknames and other bits of Yuletide trivia, Maggie received high praise from her father. At the end of the episode, Pat reflected on his daughter's hosting chops while telling her she was, quote, actually a good host. His seemingly innocuous remark renewed intense speculation that Maggie was being groomed to take over. Fans online have also speculated about the potential for Maggie instead taking over Vanna White's letter-turning duties. After Maggie joined the Wheel family in 2021 as a social media correspondent, she made several appearances both on stage and in behind-the-scenes clips. As of yet, she hasn't been given any substantial duties outside of presumably managing TikTok and Instagram accounts. Still, some fans believe her role on the show, albeit minor, is a path towards her eventually hosting the program. Of course, with the focus these days on so-called Nepo babies, there will be some inevitable backlash if the show does indeed decide to include Maggie as either a letter turner or as the primary host. The ungrateful jab. On November 25, 2020, Pat Sajak had a bit of a meltdown on his show when contestant Darren McBain challenged him on one of the puzzle answers. Darren's mother was a 3-day champion on Wheel of Fortune in 1982, so he's clearly familiar with how the game is supposed to run. He was tasked with solving a puzzle that involved guessing things that began with the word kitchen. He was able to correctly guess the answers such as towels, cabinet, and sink, but he took issue with the answer kitchen oven being on the board. Darren playfully asked, "Who calls it a kitchen oven?" Pat snapped back at him, seemingly lightheartedly, by calling him an ungrateful player. He couldn't fathom why Darren was questioning him when he'd already won the puzzle. Although it appeared Pat was merely joking, he later confirmed that he indeed finally had snapped. Some who watched the episode expressed on social media that they believe Pat almost lost it. That being said, most people seem to only think Pat was teasing the guy. Darren came in second place, but evidently Pat felt the need to clarify that he meant no harm and apologized to Darren before the credits rolled. Mocking the man with the lisp. In an episode that aired in February 2021, contestant Chris Brimble introduced himself as a computer tech salesman, and in the process, he revealed that he suffered from a minor speech impediment commonly called a lisp. After noticing the lisp, Pat replied by saying "I thee" instead of "I see," clearly mocking Brimble's manner of speech. Immediately, Pat came under a rain of fire from all directions. Some longtime Wheel fans called for the host to resign, while rumors began to swirl that the producers wanted Sajak to take a step back. Laughing at or mocking someone's speech defect is not only disrespectful, it's entirely unprofessional. So it's understandable why the public would be outraged at Sajak's behavior. Unnamed sources have told several tabloid outlets following the incident that producers of Wheel of Fortune have long been frustrated with Pat's behavior. Insiders say that while he seems to be a kind, good-hearted person, in reality he's a bit of a jerk. One gossip rag went as far as to say that Sajak's personality took a 180 after he had intestinal surgery several months before the lisp incident. It's alleged that while recovering, Pat had something of a nervous breakdown, and that afterwards he seemed to be an entirely different person. While that theory is admittedly quite flimsy, it's clear Pat doesn't seem to be the same guy we all know and love. Recently, the rumor mill has speculated that Sajak will be imminently replaced by Vanna White, his longtime assistant. Other reports claim that White has long been frustrated with merely being eye candy and has been positioning herself to take over hosting duties for good. That being said, the lisp incident happened more than a year ago. If Sajak was going to be given the boot, you'd think the show's producers would have done it by now, unless they're waiting for his contract to run out. Currently, his contract extends through the 2024 season, so if they're considering replacing him, they'll have to wait a bit more. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like, and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already, and stick around for more about Pat Sajak. Sajak's recent prize puzzle flub. On March 3, 2022, Sajak, who has been hosting Wheel of Fortune for 39 years now, made a rookie mistake that has gotten people wondering if the 75-year-old is starting to show his age. He seemed to completely forget that a puzzle solved on that evening's episode was a prize puzzle. After the contestant successfully solved it by reading the words "dazzling double rainbow," Sajak was supposed to have told her what prize she had won. Instead, he started introducing the triple toss-up round. After the blunder, you could distinctly hear the producers and staff of the show in the background shouting out the words "prize puzzle" to signal Sajak he needed to announce it. After they got his attention, Sajak read off the prize before joking they'd have to cut to commercial so he could take time to read the rules of the game show. Fans proceeded to dissect the incident on social media. One fan made a post on Twitter questioning why they hadn't edited out the mistake, given the fact the show isn't broadcast live. They also seemed puzzled why Sajak wasn't fitted with some sort of earpiece. Another feather in your cap. This isn't the first time, however, that the ABC game show has shown up in the news in 2022. On another recent episode, one of the puzzles thoroughly stumped all the contestants and has since gone viral. After the contestants filled in most of the puzzle, the wheel puzzle read, "Another feather, N-Y-O-R-A." After a contestant spun the wheel and landed on bankrupt, other contestants tried to solve the puzzle by guessing "another feather in your map" and "another feather in your lap." Finally, after about 2 minutes, one contestant was able to provide the correct answer by guessing "another feather in your cap." After seeing all the online controversy connected to the episode, Sajak defended the contestants in a lengthy Twitter post. In that post, Pat says he felt pained seeing the contestants face ridicule online. He said solving the puzzle at home while sitting in the comfort of an armchair is a lot easier than doing so while under pressure on network television. Is Sajak's nasty behavior related to grief? Pat Sajak and late Jeopardy host Alex Trebek were close friends. Trebek shocked the world when he announced in 2019 he'd been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. In the months leading to his diagnosis, he'd been experiencing a persistent stomachache. By the time he realized what he was dealing with, the cancer had already advanced to the point where there was little hope he could defeat it. His condition continued to deteriorate over the next year, although he retained his hosting duties. On July 16, 2020, Trebek gave an update on his prognosis, saying that while he felt fatigue, his chemo was starting to look like it was paying off. In October, he went under the knife to receive surgery related to his cancer treatment. But he died in his home in LA, November 8, 2020. He was 80. After Trebek's death, Pat Sajak was nothing short of devastated. Some claimed that Sajak had been deeply rattled by the death of his dear friend. Others speculated he had finally lost his marbles due to his grief. One insider noted that Alex's death left Sajak feeling depressed while forcing him to think about his own mortality. Perhaps it's these unaddressed feelings that have been causing Sajak to lash out at contestants. Whether this is actually the case is a matter of some debate, but some in Pat's inner circle feel he needs to either retire or seek out therapy to address his inner turmoil. While plenty of changes have been made to aspects of Wheel of Fortune before, these changes were always incredibly subtle and occurred over time. With these new changes, fans are quick to notice and take umbrage. Even fans who weren't initially satisfied with the show's iconic set and theme music seem to consider the new changes made to be a downgrade. But other changes have been met with less of a challenge, such as the promotion of Pat Sajak to the role of a consulting producer and the introduction of his daughter as the show's new social media consultant. She'll have a lot of work cut out for her when it comes to responses from fans to the show's new changes. Fans took to social media immediately after the premiere of Wheel's new season, an episode that introduced these changes to the audience all at once. While many fans were outraged at the creative decision to change so many iconic aspects of the show, others were simply put off and curious to see if other fans felt the same way. One of the biggest changes made for Wheel of Fortune's most recent season is the alteration of the show's classic toss-up music. This, of course, is the theme music that plays during the toss-up segment. The memorable theme music has always been incredibly intense and catchy, and the new alteration apparently isn't. Another piece of memorable theme music that's been changed is one that plays whenever a contestant correctly solves one of the show's many puzzles. The music previously provoked an almost Pavlovian response amongst both contestants and audience members, whether at home or in the studio. But the recent music seems to be having a much more underwhelming and sometimes even negative reaction amongst the beloved game show's fans. There have also been changes to the show's set. These changes are numerous and serve to make the overall aesthetic of the show a lot less dynamic and more streamlined. Understandably, fans aren't too happy. While many are angry at the changes because they were happy with the way the show originally sounded and looked, others are simply annoyed by the fact that they feel these new changes aren't much of an improvement. Even fans who are open to the idea of the show's iconic set design and music changing have expressed they feel the new changes introduced are underwhelming and don't serve to make the experience any more pleasant for the viewer at all. In addition to changing established aspects of the show, the producers have also made the decision to add several new elements. This includes an increased role for the show's longtime announcer, Jim Thornton. The most notable new part of Wheel of Fortune, however, is the aforementioned introduction of Pat Sajak's daughter into the role of the show's social media consultant, a position that sees her filming segments that take a look behind the scenes of the program and its social media. Her name is Maggie, and longtime fans of Wheel of Fortune were likely familiar with her well before the premiere of the game show's most recent season. Not only had she previously filled in for Vanna White while Vanna was filling in for Pat during Pat's 2019 medical leave, but she also appeared on the show when she was just a baby. And Maggie has made somewhat of a name for herself as a country singer. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Facts First for more. While fans are upset at the most recent changes that have been made, the show's iconic theme music has been altered a staggering number of times over the show's 4 decades. However, most of these changes were so subtle and gradual, audiences simply didn't notice. The core of the theme has always been the same, an iconic jingle that TV fans can recognize without seeing the name. The original theme music was created in the early 70s by composer and actor Alan Thicke. In addition to his role on the 80s series Growing Pains, Alan is also known today as father of popular singer Robin Thicke. But there was a time when his most memorable accomplishment was crafting the theme music for Wheel of Fortune. He's also crafted many other TV compositions, including themes for the game shows Blank Check and Celebrity Sweepstakes. But none of the other game shows Alan wrote the theme for remain on the air. His Wheel of Fortune theme is known as Big Wheels. In 1983, the theme music by Thicke was replaced by another composition known as Changing Keys, written by Merv Griffin. The purpose behind the introduction of this new theme was the fact that Wheel of Fortune was about to be syndicated, and the original theme wasn't going to be cleared for syndicated use. The original version was used for over a decade before officially being remixed in 1997. Several years later, a man named Steve Kaplan was brought on as Wheel of Fortune's new music director, and he replaced Merv's composition with a song named Happy Wheels. Happy Wheels became the Wheel of Fortune theme starting in 2000. In the year 2009, Changing Keys was nominated for an award at the Game Show Network's own award show. It was nominated for Best Game Show Theme Song, but it ended up losing to the composition Think, which is from Jeopardy! Starting in 2006, 2 men named Frankie Blue and John Hoke were put in charge of composing Wheel of Fortune's music. In addition to a variation on the classic theme Happy Wheels, the show went on to use an original rock composition written by the duo. Although fans haven't taken too kindly by the changes made to the music and set of Wheel of Fortune, they've been a bit more kind when it comes to the introduction of Pat Sajak's daughter. Maggie's new role certainly represents an increased presence in the public eye, but she's been featured on the show previously. And she's achieved a good degree of fame as a country singer, and has been featured in a photo shoot for the magazine Teen Vogue. Her new role on Wheel will see her interacting with fans of the show via social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And she'll film behind-the-scenes segments that will air during the show. While Maggie is certainly excited for the attention her role on Wheel of Fortune will bring her, she's still continuing to pursue a higher education with the hopes of becoming a lawyer. She's currently attending Princeton University after graduating from a postgraduate program at Columbia. Maggie had initially been studying pre-med at Princeton before deciding to make the official switch to studying law. When Pat had to take medical leave from Wheel of Fortune, co-host Vanna White took over his duties for the time being. Since there was no letter turner, Maggie was invited to take over for Vanna, but this appearance wasn't her first brush with fame. As a country artist, Maggie has released several singles. Her single First Kiss, released in 2013, was even featured on CMT reality show Sweet Home Alabama. Who's Ryan Seacrest? Ryan Seacrest is a name that's become synonymous with American TV. He was born December 24, 1974, in Atlanta. His broadcasting career began early. As a teen, he won an internship at one of Atlanta's top radio stations, WSTR, Star 94, where he was trained by Tom Sullivan, a popular disc jockey. He pursued his broadcasting career in Hollywood after completing his studies at the University of Georgia. His big break came in 2002 when he was chosen to co-host American Idol. That show was an instant hit, and Seacrest's charismatic hosting style quickly made him a fan favorite. By the show's second season, he was the sole host, a role he held on to for 17 seasons. He's also hosted a variety of other popular shows, including Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, E! News, and the radio show On Air with Ryan Seacrest. He also served as the executive producer for the hit reality TV show Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Seacrest's success as a host has earned him numerous awards and accolades, including an Emmy for producing the hit reality show Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution. He's also been nominated for several Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Host in a Reality or Reality Competition program for his work on American Idol. In essence, he's a broadcasting powerhouse. Seacrest's new gig, Wheel of Fortune. In a move that has sent ripples throughout the industry, Ryan has taken the reins as the new host of the iconic game show Wheel of Fortune. This new role marks another milestone in his illustrious career, adding a feather to his already well-adorned cap. The show's long-standing host, Pat Sajak, had become synonymous with the program, his witty banter and warm demeanor endearing him to millions of viewers. Seacrest's appointment as the new host marks a new era for the show, one that carries with it a mix of excitement and apprehension. His new gig comes with a hefty paycheck. His salary for hosting Wheel of Fortune is reported to be a staggering $28 million, a figure that has sparked intense debate. The amount is one of the highest in the industry, placing Seacrest among the top earners in TV hosting. The announcement of his new role and his accompanying salary has been met with a mixed response. While some celebrate the appointment of such a seasoned and charismatic host, others question the justification for such a high salary. The controversy surrounding Seacrest's salary. The figure of $28 million for Ryan Seacrest is one of the highest in the industry, and it sparked a heated debate about pay scales in television and the value placed on celebrity status. Critics argue that Seacrest's salary is exorbitant and out of touch with the realities of the industry. They point to the pay disparity between top-tier hosts like Seacrest and other people in the industry, including writers, technicians, and lesser-known hosts. This gap, they argue, is indicative of an industry that overvalues star power at the expense of other crucial roles. The controversy has also highlighted the issue of wage inequality in the industry. Critics note that while top hosts like Seacrest command multi-million-dollar salaries, many other employees in the industry struggle with low wages and job insecurity. This disparity, they argue, is unacceptable and needs to be addressed. On the other side, supporters argue that Seacrest's salary is justified given his experience, talent, and popularity. They point out Seacrest is a seasoned host with a proven track record, and his ability to draw viewers justifies his high salary. The richest TV hosts, a comparison. At the top of the list is Oprah Winfrey with a net worth of $2.6 billion. Known as the Queen of all media, Oprah's wealth comes from her long-running talk show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, her own network, and various other media endeavors. Jay Leno, who hosted The Tonight Show from 1994 to 2014, has a net worth of $450 million. Leno reportedly earned $30 million a year to host the show at the height of his career. Seacrest comes in third with a net worth of $450 million. His earnings are derived from his various hosting roles, including American Idol, Live with Kelly and Ryan, and now Wheel of Fortune. Dr. Phil McGraw, with a net worth of $460 million, is also on the list. His wealth comes from his popular talk show, Dr. Phil, as well as from his best-selling books and executive producing roles on shows like The Doctors and Bull. David Letterman holds the title for the longest-running late-night host in history with a staggering net worth of $400 million. Following his retirement as a late-night talk show host after 33 years in 2015, Letterman made a comeback in 2017 with his talk show on Netflix. The deal for the show paid him an impressive $2 million for each episode. These figures highlight the high earning potential in the world of TV hosting, particularly for those with star power and a strong viewer following. But they also highlight the enormous pay disparities within the industry, a subject that has come into sharp focus as a result of the controversy surrounding Seacrest's salary. Seacrest is a philanthropist at heart. While Ryan's professional achievements are well known, his philanthropic endeavors are equally noteworthy. He's the founder of the Ryan Seacrest Foundation, a nonprofit organization that aims to inspire today's youth through entertainment and education-focused initiatives. The foundation's flagship project is the creation of Seacrest Studios, broadcast media centers located in pediatric hospitals across the U.S. These studios provide a creative outlet for young patients during their hospital stays, allowing them to explore the realms of radio, television, and new media. The goal is to aid in the healing process by providing a positive distraction from their medical treatments. Seacrest Studios are now present in several hospitals across the country, from Atlanta, Seacrest's hometown, to Orange County, California. Each studio offers a range of programming, from live shows hosted by patients to celebrity interviews and interactive games. The studios have become a beacon of hope and positivity, bringing smiles to the faces of young patients and their families. Ryan's philanthropic efforts highlight his dedication to support the community. It shows that his influence extends far beyond the television screen, impacting the lives of young patients across the country.
Vanna's absence. Vanna White may be rich, famous, and gorgeous, but she's never let her success go to her head, at least not when it comes to consistency and dedication to her job. The longtime co-host of Wheel of Fortune is legendary for her ability to do her job no matter what's going on in her life. In fact, Vanna has literally not missed an episode of Wheel of Fortune in 30 years, until now. It's been reported that White missed a day of taping recently due to illness. And while most people call in sick now and again, it's a serious departure for the longtime Wheel letter turner. But not to worry, it's not of anything too serious. She was back the next taping day. But it did mean she won't be on 5 episodes of the long-running show because they tape several each day of filming. And while there can sometimes be wiggle room as far as moving the shoot date, the producers were boxed into the dates for that particular day because it was part of Teachers Week. As such, they couldn't postpone the filming because school is about to start and those teachers need to be back in the classroom. In a fitting move, the show had the 2023 California Teacher of the Year, Bridget Donald Blue, fill in for Vanna during her absence. Vanna's previous absences. While Vanna hasn't missed a show in 30 years, there have been occasional times when she's been forced to miss a taping. And by occasional, we mean literally 3 days ever. In 1986, she suffered a horrible tragedy when her fiancé was killed in a plane crash. Vanna took a day off from filming to mourn his loss. She was replaced for the day by Susan Stafford. Then in 1991, after finding love again, White got married and went on a honeymoon. The show agreed it was a great reason to miss a day of work, so she and her new husband, George Santopietro, went on a trip, and Tricia Gist filled in for Vanna on Wheel. The third time was also in 1991 when she was out sick. Tricia filled in for her that day too. Vanna's life. Vanna was born Vanna Marie Rosich on February 18, 1957, in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Her life and career are a blend of perseverance, dedication, and a bit of serendipity. White grew up in South Carolina and following high school moved to Atlanta, where she attended the prestigious Atlanta School of Fashion and Design. Her ambition to be in the entertainment industry led her to move to Los Angeles in the late 70s. While there, she worked as a model and took on small roles in films and TV shows. Her big break came in 1982 when she was selected as one of the 3 substitute hostesses of Wheel of Fortune following the departure of Susan Stafford. Not long after, she became the show's regular hostess. Teamed up with Pat Sajak, Vanna quickly became a household name, known for her graceful presence and the seemingly effortless way she revealed the letters on the game board. Over time, as technology evolved, the physical turning of letters was replaced with touchscreens, but Vanna's charm remained a constant. She's also made cameos in various TV shows and films, often playing herself. She's been a guest on talk shows and even authored an autobiography titled Vanna Speaks in 1987. Moreover, she's an avid crocheter and has a yarn line named Vanna's Choice. White has faced her share of challenges, including the tragic death of her fiancé. She's been married twice and has 2 children from her marriage to restaurateur George Santopietro. Vanna's legacy is that of consistency, grace, and professionalism. She holds a Guinness World Record for television's most frequent clapper, a nod to her enthusiastic applause for Wheel of Fortune contestants. Her enduring presence on the show has made her a beloved figure in American pop culture. Vanna's future. As Pat Sajak rides off into the retirement sunset and Ryan Seacrest takes over hosting duties for the show, Many people have been wondering if Vanna will stick around. Well, that's still to be determined, but she has stated she'd like a pay raise. She's currently paid $3 million a year for the show, which is certainly a lot, but it's about a fifth of what Sajak makes. And although his job is arguably a lot more challenging, Vanna knows how truly valuable she is to the show. As such, she's asking for a higher salary if she were to stick around. Here's hoping she gets one. The history of the show. Wheel of Fortune is one of the longest-running and most popular game shows in television history. It's a mix of word puzzle solving and chance, represented by that iconic spinning wheel. It was created in 1975 by Merv Griffin. The idea was inspired by the game Hangman and the roulette wheel used in casinos. Griffin initially titled it Shopper's Bazaar, with a pilot episode that aired in 1973. However, after some tweaks and some changes, it debuted as Wheel of Fortune on NBC on January 6, 1975. The original format had contestants shopping for prizes with the money they won from solving word puzzles. This shopping element was eventually removed in the late 80s to streamline and speed up the game. Chuck Woolery was the original host, with Susan Stafford as the letter turner. In 81, Pat Sajak took over hosting duties, and a year later, Vanna White replaced Stafford. The duo of Sajak and White became synonymous with the show, creating a long-standing partnership that has endured for decades. The daytime version of the show was a hit, leading to the creation of a syndicated evening version in 1983, which became even more popular. Over the years, the show has seen several format changes, like the introduction of the jackpot, mystery, and million-dollar wedges. The manual puzzle board was replaced with a touchscreen in 1997. Its catchphrases like "I'd like to buy a vowel" have entered everyday language. The show has been parodied in numerous TV shows, movies, and comedy sketches. In recognition of its impact, Wheel of Fortune has received numerous awards and accolades, including several Daytime Emmy Awards. Pat and Ryan. As you've probably heard, longtime host Pat Sajak will be stepping down after decades as host. He'll be replaced by Ryan Seacrest. And fans all over the country are remembering the incredible job Sajak has done over the years and how he's been a big part of American pop culture and TV game show history. Pat was born Patrick Leonard Sajak on October 26, 1946 in Chicago. He grew up there and after high school attended Columbia College in Chicago. While there, he worked as a desk clerk at the Palmer House Hotel. His broadcasting career began in the armed forces. He joined the U.S. Army in 1968 and was sent to Vietnam, where he served as a disc jockey on Armed Forces Radio. Following his military service, he continued his radio career, eventually landing a job as a weatherman for KNBC-TV in Los Angeles in the 70s. His big break came in 1981 when he was selected to replace Chuck Woolery as the host of Wheel of Fortune. With his easygoing charm and wit, Sajak quickly became a favorite among viewers. He briefly had his own late-night talk show, The Pat Sajak Show, which aired on CBS from 1989 to 90. Sajak has also made guest appearances on several TV shows and movies, often playing himself. He's been married to Leslie Brown since 1989, and they have 2 children. Off the set, he's known for his sharp wit, which is evident in his frequent Twitter posts, and has occasionally sparked discussions on various topics. Now it's time to hear from you. Were you surprised to find out Vanna White had not missed a show in 30 years? Let us know in the comments section below.